Away, my bruise, away. I made a bold video around the history and the complexities of the colored nation, colored community in South Africa. I knew before I made it that it was bold, it was brave. I knew before I made it that some would deem it controversial. I knew that I was opening a can of worms. And yeah, I guess I wasn't surprised when some of the comments weren't that nice and some of them were quite emotional, and I knew it. But in the absence of anyone, especially at leadership level, doing this in South Africa, I was like, why not me? I did add that, look, I have a vested interest in the colored community because my mom is mixed race. My mom is biracial, half Indian, half black Zulu. So I have a personal link. My other personal link is when I look at my children and the moms of my children. When you do a deep dive, you realize some of the family links as well have got some mixed race in there. On top of that, I've got so many friends, so many relatives, like my mom's side of the family, so many business associates, so many colleagues and other people who are mixed race, biracial, colored. So I was like, man, I see something here and I'd like to talk about it. So I decided to talk about it. I did promise a follow-up video, and this is it. This follow-up video is not how I had envisioned it, to be honest. So this was my hope. And maybe I'll still get to it, I'm not sure. My hope was to drop that initial video and then get like a lot of comments. No, the thing about Coloureds is this. No, but have you researched this? And then to take all of that intel, collate it, consolidate where possible, and then come with, this is a summary of what I spoke about. These are some of the mistakes I made. This is some of the additional stuff I hadn't considered. I didn't get much of that. I got some of it and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And like I said, maybe I will do a follow-up with some of the comments. What I got was a lot of people thanking me, and it was humbling. And it was people in the comments, it was people on other social media platforms. I got a lot of DMs of people thanking me. I bumped into a lot of people, a lot of colored people came up to me. Plen, I saw your video on your Coloureds. Thank you so much, my bra. Yar. Humbling, honestly. I got a lot of emotional stories in the DMs. People speaking about being misclassified in the past. People asking me questions of, I've got children. I'm a black person. We had children with a white person. Are my kids colored? I'm not really sure how to classify them. My grandmother used to identify as black, but I think she was colored. My great-grandmother has got this link. My ancestors come from here, but they were ill-treated because of this. There were people, understandably so, that raised a lot of the colorism within the so-called colored communities about, a lot of coloreds mistreat other coloreds for being darker. And there were people that were calling out some of our celebrities, our politicians, saying, that person's not a colored, that person is black. And so there were a lot of emotional stories. There were people speaking about a colored community that has links to St. Helens Bay, if I'm not mistaken. People referencing coloreds from the Eastern Cape. Sotho people speaking about coloreds, where they come from. A lot of people from Namibia. Namibia's got a very healthy colored community. I know I studied with a lot of them at Rhodes University, Makanda. Zimbabwe has got a lot of colored people as well. I think I may have mentioned Eswatini, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of coloreds, especially of Portuguese descent, in Portuguese heritage in places like Mozambique. A lot of so-called colored people. There were coloreds in the community, in the comments, in the DMs, who said there's a lot they didn't know. And to be honest, that is literally why I made that video. Because you realize that sometimes we think we know, but we don't know our own history. our own heritage. We talk about it at surface level. I mean, there are ordinary black South Africans who don't understand the history of many of their cultural practices. Ilobolo, itlawulo, umemulo, umabo, umcaco, etc. They don't know. Black people that don't know that we did not have surnames. We did not have surnames. What do you mean? We didn't have surnames, bro. But you don't know that because you don't know the history of your own life. So I share some of these things because I find them interesting, because I think other people find them interesting, because they're educational, but also because I'm trying to resolve this thing of identity, because I do believe that our lack of identity, our disrupted identity by colonialism, apartheid, our messed up identity today because our political leaders have not fixed some of the identity crises of the past, are part of the reason why we struggle with so many different things. Teaching people things like the Cape Flats is not a block of flats in Cape Town. The Cape Flats is speaking about flatlands, plattelande, flatlands in the Western Cape, where on those flatlands there are all the townships, black townships, Kwalanga, Enyanga, Gugulethu, Khayelitsha. The colored neighborhoods, your Mitchell's Plain, your Bonte Yevels, and other places, or Philippi, or Delft, that's all the Cape Flats. So when they speak about gangsterism and drugs and murders in the Cape Flats, they are speaking about all of those places. Enyanga, in particular, has got crazy murder rates. These are things people don't know. So yeah, I wanted to thank you. And then to the people, man, who gave a lot of negative feedback. First of all, I want to start by saying, I'm sorry that my video triggered you. My video was not made with any negative intent, number one. Number two, it is clear that a lot of you have got a lot of internal turmoil. A lot of you have got a lot of issues with the apartheid government, the current South African government, our history. And I understand that you are projecting in some of your comments. I don't think it's you. I think it's your anger and your confusion and your frustration. And I also need you guys that gave negative feedback to understand, guys, colored people are not the same. They genuinely are colored people who share the exact same mix and history as you, who identify as black. You guys have got the same lineage. They hate the term colored. They hate it with a passion. To them, it speaks to apartheid. To them, it speaks to oppression. To them, it speaks to segregation. To them, it speaks to so many things. And they're like, I'm black, bro. I'm not colored. That is their understanding and their view of the world. And it's not for you to bash them and say, coloreds are not black. That is now your reality. You don't identify as black and you're allowed. You identify as colored. You're like, I'm proudly colored. I'm proudly a Braino. What do you mean, bro? I'm a colored. I understand. You're allowed. But then you bleed on other people who don't identify as what you identify as. There's a question that would keep coming up. If I have a black parent and a white parent and I'm mixed race, or if I've got white heritage and black heritage, why am I forced to either assimilate to mixed race or to black? Why can't I assimilate to white? Why must Trevor Noah either be colored or black? Why can't he be white? Why can't Shoma Josie say, oh, I'm white? Why can't Dr. Zizwe Mpofu Walsh say, oh, I'm white? They forced to either be colored / mixed race or to be black. Almost like they are not allowed to be white. One of the interesting comments I read was someone saying, why can't some of these colored people that have got, you can trace the lineage to the Netherlands, to Germany, to England. Why can't they have dual citizenship? You've got South Africans who are like, oh, I've got Irish blood. Oh, I've got British descendants. My great-grandmother was from England. Why can't some of these coloreds be like, yeah, My great-great-grandfather is also from Germany, so I also want citizenship. Why not? And that's the reason I say leaders in the colored community need to be the ones to drive these agendas, to unpack the layers. It's not going to be done in a 30-minute video, 1-hour video, a 2-hour conversation or debate podcast. You know how long this thing has been building. So trying to unravel it is going to take maybe even longer. For those who want to. For those who are like, hey, brah, I'm colored. Leave me alone. I'm carrying. If you're happy and at peace and you're thriving, you have a good job, good business, your family's sound, top shaila. Don't let anyone disturb you. But I do think a lot of our issues, a lot of the mental health issues we have, a lot of the drug abuse, alcohol abuse, violence, a lot of the lack of economy, lack of business, lack of identity is because people are trying to figure this thing out, man. Who am I? Vi asak. Ngingubani. And they want to know their roots. Inkabi is from where? So that they think, oh, okay. I mean, Trevor Noah speaks proudly about his Swiss dad because he's embraced it. I've got Swiss heritage. That's my father. I've got a white part of me. So I'm at peace. And I've got a black Xhosa part. These were the people that raised me. I'm Xhosa basically because I was raised culturally Xhosa. But this is also my family. And you have a level of peace. There are other people who just find themselves here. I'm colored. How did you come here? How are you mixed? No, I'm Cape Malay. From where? I don't know, brah. Maybe Indonesia. You might find you're not even from there. You're from Sri Lanka. You might find that you're actually a mix from Mozambique with German heritage. But because you became part of a community, all of that got lost. You think you have a surname, but your surname is actually linked to the month of the year in which your parents were brought in as slaves or as indentured labor. You're colored, but you're like, but I don't speak Afrikaans, bro. Like, what kind, bro? Hey, bro, me, I don't speak Afrikaans. I don't dollar that thing, bro. Me, I smack Engels, bro. I speak English. What do you mean? Where do you come from? KZN. KZN Coloureds have got their own unique history. The Portuguese with the British. I spoke about it in my last video. Some of the white men in KZN who ended up impregnating a lot of black Zulu women to give birth to an entire colored community there. In the Western Cape, it is such a huge mixed masala. It is so difficult to say this is the stereotype because they are so different. And the different names of the people they identify. I mean, I saw recently that I think there's a movie or documentary of Krotoa, the so-called mother that birthed the colored community there, or is seen as. There's a surname that people keep sending to me. I don't know if it's Base. Please look up Base as well, as someone who's heavily involved. There are people who are saying the Griquas or the Griquas don't identify as colored. Some agree that yes, some identified as colored but were not, and they did it because they wanted better treatment. Some are saying, no, but Griquas are colored. Then there are people who are like, Khoisan are not colored, bruh. And I'm like, I never said they were, but when you look at the research and what people say, there are so many people that say the Khoi and the San are colored people. When the people from the Khoi and the San were protesting at the union buildings in Pretoria, Etswane, they were saying we are Khoi San people, we are not colored. Because they are saying we're not part of those people. Some of them might identify as black, some of them might identify as Bantu, some of them might be like, we are our own people. We're not black, we're not colored, we are Khoi. And you're like, you, tough. It's complicated. Let me see if I can go through it again. I don't have it in my notes here. I don't even know if I have it in my notes here. Afrikaners, Khoisan, Pastors, Oorlam, Griqua, Cape Malays, Bantu, Indian, Malagasy. Some people were learning about their links to Madagascar. The Malagasy people, Malgas, the surname. A comment I got on Facebook spoke about Sutus of the Bakwena clans. found in the south of Gauteng with the Basutus, the Kwena people, and the Boers, the Afrikaners, having children. Later integrated into communities like Eldos, Eldorado Park, Enadale, Eden Park, Toekomsrus in the West Rand. And this person was arguing, again, these are the things that need to be discussed, debated, challenged, etc., arguing that 50% of Coloureds in Gauteng have some sort of Basotho in their DNA. Basters, now called Rehoboth Basters, live in Namibia, but were part of forced removals from the Northern Cape where they settled. Eventually moved to Namibia because of white settler migration to the Northern Cape. Big German community in Namibia who obviously got with the locals to have kids there. Someone sent a very negative post calling me all sorts of names, and I'm not going to read it, but I want to read something very interesting that they sent in their comment. This person said there are only 3 types of so-called colored people. Again, this is their opinion, and you're free to agree, disagree, challenge, whatever. There are only 3 types of so-called colored people. Number 1, biracial, which makes up 1%, less than 1%. Trevor Noah, Mpofu Walsh, Feinberg Mgomezulu, Happy Sindane, etc. They are not really considered colored, as they do not share a common country, culture, history, kinship, and language with the larger so-called colored population. In general, they do not consider themselves colored, and rightfully so. Their identity was shaped by miscegenation, and they are culturally and linguistically aligned to their mother's heritage most of the time, although there are exceptions to this norm. Number 2, Metis. Metis, M-E-T-I-S, make up about 9% of the total colored population. English speaking, with a very distinctive accent with regional quirks, which require a trained ear to know the difference. These are your Waras, Tyler, Covent Goldstone type of colored. Those who live in small towns and on farms are very fluent in isiZulu and isiXhosa, generally referred to as Durban Coloureds, although familial ties stretch from the old Transkei to Zululand. Their identity was shaped by British colonialism and the metisage of Cape Coloureds, Mauritanian, Creoles, St. Helenians, and other biracial people who generally intermarried amongst themselves and over time evolved into a very distinct ethnic group. Number 3, Cape Creoles make up 85 to 90% of the total colored population. Their identity was shaped by the traumatic experience of Dutch colonialism, chattel slavery, and creolization. They are a Creole people with a Creole culture who speak a Creole language called Kaaps with different regional dialects. Kaaps preceded Afrikaans, just by the way. They have a very strong Khoi maternal lineage, 60 to 70%, hence their claim to the Cape and all her 3 provinces as their land. Lest we forget, South Africa never existed as a country until 1910, and Coloureds and Darkies were not consulted on this matter. Their parental ancestry is largely indigenous Khoi, which is Bantu, Malagasy, indigenous Khoi, and then Bantu, Malagasy, South Asian, and Southeast Asian, enslaved people, and Dutch, German, Flemish, and French settlers. They are considered the most mixed race people in the world. They are the holy grail of the oldest maternal human genome or genetic marker, L0D1, which makes them a remarkably unique people. Given their history, no people in South Africa have endured in duration and depth the suffering of these colored people. In spite of their history, they are a very remarkable and resilient people, talented and beautiful. They go on to add, out of interest, the term Cape Malay is a misnomer. There was never an endogamous people who developed separately from the rest of the Cape colonies, laboring underclass. 2/3 of all miscegenation at the Cape colony was between Khoi women and enslaved men because of a highly skewed male to female slave ratio. For every 6 enslaved males, there was 1 female at the Cape colony. As a result, Khoi women indentured on slave holdings were inevitably the choice partners for enslaved men. They end off with, the historical literature is out there. Seek and thou shalt find, said Yeshua of Nazareth. Again, this was a negative comment, by the way, because there's parts I didn't read. But what I'm reading is the educational part, which I thought was so dope, because I have an ability to consume stuff even when people are sort of being nasty. So thank you for this. What I went up to look up and what I wanted to touch on a little bit here in this video. Creole, something mentioned in that comment. What does Creole mean? According to Google, Creole is a language that has developed from a simplified pidgin into a new, full-fledged language with native speakers or to people and their culture, particularly those of mixed European and African descent in places like Louisiana or the Caribbean. Creole. Creole also means people of mixed ancestry, in particular African and European mix. Historically, Creole is people of European, often French or Spanish, born in places like Louisiana or the West Indies. A language like Afrikaans is seen by some educated as a Creole language, a language that was developed from some type of amalgamation of pidgin-speaking language of the indigenous people of the Cape and the people that were passing through from Europe all the way to the east, to India and China for spices and silk and the like. And as the comment said, they say there's a term called Kaaps as a language that predates Afrikaans. That's Creole. What is culture? What is race? I got a definition of race. Let me get it for you. I mentioned these two terms because in my last video, my argument was, I don't think colored is a race. I think colored is a culture. There were many people that agreed with me. There were many people that disagreed with me. What is a race? A race is a socially constructed term. Very important. Socially, not biologically, not genetically, not anything else. It is socially constructed. We decide that this is cool. We decide that let's do socially constructed term used to group people based on shared physical traits, skin color, hair texture, and facial features, often tied to ancestral backgrounds and cultural identities. While people are often characterized into racial groups, modern scientific consensus is that there are no distinct biogenetically separate human races, and that racial categories are social and political creations that have changed over time and across different places. That is race. So when you say people are a race, you are arguing per definition a social term of people that have the same skin color, the same hair texture, and facial features, which are normally tied to their ancestral backgrounds and cultural identities. So we come from the same place, same mix, same whatever, and we share a physical similarity. That is race. And the reason I don't like the idea of Coloureds being seen as a race is because Coloureds look so different. There are so many, yes, there might be are you colored? Sure. But they are so different. So I'm like, they're culture. But what is culture? Culture is shared social behavior, institutions, and norms of a human society, including its knowledge, language, beliefs, arts, customs, etc. This now includes tools, clothing, etc. That is a culture. Shared social behavior, institutions, and norms of a human society. Colored culture. What is colored culture? What is black culture? What is white culture? What is Indian culture? What is Zulu culture? What is Xhosa culture? What is Sotho culture? What is Venda culture? It is shared social behavior. So if you meet people, Awe me bro, how are you? No, man, I come from Aldos. Shared institutions. Now, I went to the same school, bruh. Me and him were dollaring the same thing. Norms of human society, including knowledge. What do you know? Nah, I think I'm from somewhere there in the Kaap there, bruh, somewhere. And we used to vie with the... So there's a shared knowledge, shared language. Nee, ek praat Afrikaans. Wat praat jy? Nee, ek praat hierdie taal, bruh. A shared language, shared beliefs, whether it is the huge colored Muslim community in the Cape or the huge colored Christian community, shared beliefs, go to church, Easter Sunday, whatever the case may be, shared arts, shared customs. The arts includes your dances, your music, and shout out to your guys like your youngster CPT, Brasa van die Kaap, and those guys. Customs and habits, clothing, shared culture. My argument was that colored culture is as distinct as black culture because black people have certain social behavior, institutions, norms, knowledge, language, but it's split. Zulus don't speak Xitsonga. Xhosas don't speak Tswana. When you look at the clothing, Zulu attire versus Ndebele attire is different. When you look at our knowledge of history, what Amampondo understand versus the Bakwena people understand, different history, different lineage, different tools, different arts, different customs. Coloureds similarly have differing cultures. Race. Biracial, mixed race, colored. Biracial, two races. Naomi Osaka, Japanese mom, black dad. Dr. Sizwe Mpofu Walsh, white British mom, black Xhosa dad. Trevor Noah, black Xhosa mom, white Swiss dad. Sasha Feinberg Mgomezulu, white father, black Zulu mom. Biracial. You are not black, you are not white, you are two races. You are not colored. You shouldn't be colored. You are two races. You belong to a mix of two distinct racial groups that can be identified. Mixed race. Two races, biracial. Mixed race, it's now getting complicated. Sasha Feinberg Mgomezulu, as a biracial child, decides to have children with Naomi Osaka, a biracial child. Their children become mixed race. There are no two distinct racial groups now. It is a combination of races. Combination, mixed race. I am of mixed race. Colored. What is that? Colored to me is mixed race, a combination of races. But when you're saying colored, what are you speaking about? You're speaking about people that have shared social behavior institutions and yes, they may be of different shades, just like black people in this country. Just like black people in this country. But now to say this is a race means we are saying colored is another term for mixed race. But now biracial kids are not in there, number one. Number two, there are dark-skinned people that fall under colored, that look black. We spoke about race being physical traits, shared physical traits, skin color, hair texture, facial features. People reference parliamentarian Ashley Sauls of the Patriotic Alliance, Gayton McKenzie of the Patriotic Alliance. And I can say, no, but this guy's black. Look at him. I am colored. Hi, chief. Colored, mixed race. So what makes Gayton, Ashley Sauls, and other dark-skinned coloreds? What makes them colored? Culture. They were raised in a space where they embraced social behavior, institutions, history, norms, clothing. language with the people there. So it became their culture, which opens up another can of worms. Because if Robert Dunn in KZN spoke isiZulu and had Zulu wives and followed Zulu customs, is he Zulu? No, he's not Zulu. Why not? He's embraced everything culturally Zulu, but he's white. White is a race. White is a race. Zulu is a culture. So that's where this question and this theory, this idea comes from of, I don't think colored is a race. Mixed race is a race. Biracial is a race. Colored, I think, is a type of people with a language, behavior, and. And if I was raised in the colored neighborhood in Newcastle called Fairley, of which I did my crash schooling there, I did my grade 1 and grade 2, sub A and sub B, taught by Miss Wells and Mrs. Finn. I used to also dial and come here, go over there at Chelmsford Primary. If I'd stayed there and finished my schooling there and adopted colored norms and socialized as colored, I could have presented as, no, bro, I'm colored. People are like, yeah, but you look black. Ah, well, that means I'm a black colored. What do you mean, bro? I'm a dark braino. Culture. Culture. And the problem we have in this country is that we bunch all mixed race people, some dark-skinned people, and some very, very light-skinned people under this one huge umbrella, this one big pot of colored. And I don't think it helps what we have now. Once we've unpacked where all of these people come from, their mix, and where they are now, we can then move into the future. And just like people did in the past, but without forcing, without colonialism and oppression, and the mixed-race people of South Africa, the biracial people of South Africa, can now define for themselves how they want to be seen. Do we completely collapse race as a construct? Because again, it's a social construct. South Africa has now done away with race as a construct. We're now only using cultural identifiers. I am Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho, Colored, Cape Malay, Kapsa, Griqua, Ndebele, Pondo, Bata, Hlubi, Kwena, Phokeng. Maybe we're identifying as culture. What cultural group do you belong? Afrikaner. Or are we identifying by colors? Not race, colors. I am brown, light-skinned brown, dark-skinned brown. I am yellow, light-skinned, dark-skinned. I am orange. I am red. I am black. I am purple. We can define that for ourselves, and we can create a society that is more accurate of its people, and a society that is more inclusive and healthy of its people. And where people are not held by the bondage of terms that get them treated a certain way. And where what happened during apartheid is that the apartheid government classified whites at the top, coloreds and Indians, and then black at the bottom, such that certain black people wanted to identify as colored to be treated better, to live closer to town. We're now living in a time where being identified as colored links you to gangs, drugs, the Cape, Afrikaans. And you're like, I'm not that. So what does it mean? Purely because you look a certain way. Because we're not redefining who we are as a people. And we're making things more difficult for ourselves. I'll close today's video there. As you guys can see, man, I read your comments. I do respond to some of them. So looking forward to reading your comments, to carrying on with this discussion. And when the time permits, I'm hoping to sit with some scholars on colored history to really unpack and educate further and to distinguish so that those that need it can find healing and peace and reach out and find their people and define themselves more accurately so that they can thrive. I went through a list of some of the most talented and most celebrated Coloureds we've had in South Africa. And I want to thank those of you who added some names there. People like Abdullah Ibrahim and others, legends in South Africa. And maybe I'll also add this. You'd be surprised how many white South Africans, how many black South Africans have got some type of mixed race heritage in their families. You do a little bit of research, and you'll find there was an Indian somewhere, or a white person somewhere, or a mixed race person somewhere. If you just do a little bit of digging, you'd be surprised. And we've lost all of this history. And sometimes we hate each other, not understanding that we actually, some of us, are linked to the same type of people. The swart pen, the black pen, away massacred. Cheers.